To the teachers, assistants, and support staff who see potential in every child, Grand Canyon University recognizes you. We created the National Center for Teacher Preparation at GCU, along with a generous scholarship, so you can become a licensed teacher with paid benefits. Over 100 GCU alumni have been recognized award recipients, including Superintendent, Administrator, and Teacher of the Year. Find your purpose at Grand Canyon University. Private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu/parapro.
Menards has the best in-stock selection of AC2 pressure-treated lumber. All easy to load in our drive-through lumber yard. Choose from our huge inventory of boards, decking, fencing, lumber, and timbers to build your project to last. Plus, you can get free estimates fast with our deck and fence design programs at Menards. Number one in customer satisfaction among home improvement retailers according to J.D. Power. For more information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
Save big money at Menards.
From Wall Street to the White House, this is the Larry Kudlow Show.
So let's talk some politics and review what's happened this past week. And we're going to talk about Biden, which is a nothing burger. We're going to talk about Trump's platform and Trump's VPs. And we got Joe Concha, Fox News contributor. And yes, I'm going to continue to read the book, Come On, Man, Truth About Biden's No Good, Horrible, Very Bad Presidency. And we're going to find Tammy Bruce, Fox News contributor, and she's got a new book out called Fear Itself, Exposing the Left's Mind-Killing Agenda. We start with my pal Joe Concha. Joe, welcome back. So I'm going to argue that I understand Mr. Biden has some serious cognitive problems. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know what that's all about. I understand that. But I think his biggest problem is his Bernie Sanders big government socialism, woke cancel culture, Green New Deal, high inflation, shrinking kitchen tables, war around the world. Those are his problems. The country's rebelling against them. And Donald Trump's platform deals with the kind of growthy, opportunity-oriented for all working-class people, exactly what Americans want to hear. It's a common sense platform. It's actually, interestingly, it's a centrist platform. It's what used to be the center of American politics, and I think he's revived that. And I think the press running around after Joe Biden missed the whole point this week. What does Joe Concha think?
Larry, I think it's kind of like BC, before Jesus was born and after. Well, there's BD, and that is before debate and after debate. and the thing is, we're concentrating on Biden's cognitive abilities or lack thereof, and we should after what we saw at that debate or at that press conference or what we, quite frankly, seen over the last 4 years. But what's lost in all this is there's a reason why Joe Biden was at 36% approval before the debate, why he was underwater by 20 points when it comes to his handling of inflation or his handling of crime or the border and illegal immigration. The policies of Joe Biden are the problem here. Obviously, he is as well, but you see this sneaky narrative start to come into play here where I heard Stephanopoulos say it during the interview with Biden. I've heard every Democrat say it. They talk about Joe Biden like he's FDR before they throw the knife into his back. But they keep saying that, well, this is really a highly successful presidency, but the president has to go. It's like, well, what has been successful about it exactly when you look at the world on fire from a foreign policy perspective, when you look at the fact that the cost of living is up 20% since this president took office, gas prices up 50%, people moving out of major American cities due to crime, and these horrible district attorneys like San Francisco, Chicago, New York, going to places like Florida, Tennessee, Texas that are run by Republican governors. So I could go down the list in terms of Joe Biden and his record, and that's what we should be concentrating on just as much as his cognitive abilities, and then contrast with the 3.5 years of Trump before COVID, and you tell me which presidency was better for this country.
And Tammy Bruce, good roundup by Joe. And Tammy, Republican National Convention starts Monday, and the convention is going to be all about the items that Joe ticked off that I mentioned in my opening remarks and various columns during the course of the week. The RNC in Milwaukee is going to focus on that. And I think that's the key issue. That's the key issue. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And, what you won't see are people like Clooney and Streisand and the elites wandering around lecturing the people watching. What people are going to see from various reports, I hear, is that the stars are going to be regular people, ordinary Americans who've had various experiences in life that reflect the nature of what's happened to all of our lives. You've got moms who've lost their children to the fentanyl crisis, to union members, to small business owners. It's the people that have always been the lifeblood and the backbone of this country. It has never been Hollywood or the bureaucratic system. It is the average, as Donald Trump described in 2015 and 16, the forgotten man and woman by the elitist bureaucratic system. So what we do know, and this is what I think is very important, part of what the Democrats are trying to do with Joe Biden, knowing that their policies have failed, interestingly, they don't shrink away in shame. They lie and they gaslight, and then they try to throw the man who, if there was anybody who is not responsible for policy, in many ways, it's Joe Biden. He's not responsible for probably when he goes to the bathroom. So there's no way that you're looking at the guy who is the sole one responsible, and they know it, but they've got to show that it's like the bad guy is gone, and that all of them sneak out the side door, pretending that, he was the problem. Bring in a new person who will be doing exactly the same thing. The good news is that Trump's presidency, normally, of course, the left would say, like Barack Obama did, that this is just a new normal, that our lives falling apart and this becoming an old Soviet system is the new normal. But we know because of Trump that what he says and what he describes is not some fever dream. He can do it. And he did do it, and he's going to do it again.
By the way, it's interesting. The platform, which I have in my hot little hands here, you've got two parts to this platform. The overall platform is 15 pages, which is really phenomenal. 100-page platforms never get read. This one's 15 pages, but the centerpiece is 20 bullets. That's all, 20 bullets. Maybe we'll touch, as I said before, this is the growthiest platforms in the last 44 years, going back to Ronald Reagan, for whom I worked when I was a child. But Tammy, the dedication, it's the first page, dedication, to the forgotten men and women of America, okay?
That's right.
That's just wonderful stuff. And, Joe, I think Tammy's point is right. I have the schedule of speakers, at least for Monday, and it is just sort of men and women from various walks of life, many of whom have suffered the problems of the Biden administration, whether they're economic problems, or worse, crime problems or drug overdose problems, and so forth. Or, for example, Gold Star mothers who have lost. Joe Biden says we didn't lose any American lives under his term. That is completely and utterly wrong. We did. These are all things that are going to come up in the convention. And I want to just raise this other point, Joe. You probably saw it, but the Atlantic magazine, which is a left of center magazine, but I want to raise this. I read this long 25-page article, basically an interview with Mr. Trump's campaign managers, Chris LaCivita and Susie Wiles. Okay, to cut to the chase, the bottom line here is they are looking to make great inroads into non-white voters, and particularly, Joe, black and Hispanic men between the ages of 18 and 34. And this isn't me. This is what they say. They're reaching out. Now, it's a more encompassing strategy, but low propensity Trump supporters. We could get into that, but it's so interesting to me. Non-white voters, black and Hispanic men between the ages of 18 and 34. That is their target. And I think it's fair to say we've already seen in the polls that the Trumps have had great success already with this constituency. What do you think about that?
Larry, Tammy, New York Times, looking right at it. 26% of blacks support Joe Biden right now. Think about that for a second. The Republican gets double digits. That's a huge headline. And the fact that he's getting a quarter of black votes, what does that mean in cities like Atlanta in terms of winning the state of Georgia, or Philadelphia and winning Pennsylvania, or Detroit and winning Michigan? If those numbers remotely hold, then Donald Trump is your next president, and he is by a landslide. And obviously, we've seen polls where Trump is actually leading among Hispanics when he lost to that group in 2020 to Biden by 23 points. So the reversals are stunning, and the outreach has already been happening. And Chris and Susie, who have been running this campaign, they do not get enough credit. We do not talk enough about how this campaign has been A+, top-notch, and most importantly, Donald Trump trusts them. So when they say, hey, Mr. President, I don't think after that debate we should say a word. We should let Joe Biden and the Democrats turn this into Game of Thrones, where everybody's at each other's throats and they're going to sink their own campaign. And on that point, by the way, the fact that this stalemate continues between the Obama, Clinton, elitist camp, if you want to call it that, and many in the media, and the Biden camp of Jill Biden, Hunter Biden, Ron Klain, and everybody else who wants to cling to power along with Joe Biden, the fact that this stalemate continues now, we're now 16 days past that debate, and in 25 days, that's when the nomination happens for the Democrats. Because remember, they're not waiting for the convention. They're doing earlier by Zoom, but basically virtually. So on August 7th, we're going to know who the nominee is. So you're going to tell me that in the next 25 days, Joe Biden's going to step aside and the party's going to coalesce around one candidate? No shot that happens. Biden is your nominee. And if he is, the Trump campaign has shown that they are more than ready to not just win all those swing states, but even states like New Hampshire, New Jersey, New Mexico, Maine, Virginia, Minnesota. The map is expanding, guys.
By the way, that's such an interesting point, Tammy. You know, this is the gang that can't shoot straight, the Democratic Party. There was a book many years ago when the New York Mets started their first season in baseball, and their old manager, the old Yankee manager, went to the Mets. Casey Stengel wrote a book called Can Anybody Play This Game? That's the way I see the Democrats. And these guys, look, we're going to have this I think, a lot of fun RNC. It's going to be energetic. It's going to have terrific stuff on the issues. Ordinary people, as you mentioned before, are going to be some of the lead speakers. The Democrats aren't even going to have a convention. It's going to be virtual convention. Well, what's a virtual convention? Yeah. What kind of energy? What are they going to show? The kind of virtual convention, like COVID. Most Americans want to forget COVID and virtual this and Zoom that. That's no way to run a railroad. They can't even get that right.
Well, I would caution. I always break out into a cold sweat, Larry and Joe, when I think of 2022 and the confidence that we all had. And here's one thing I do know. You're right about the Democrats, and yet they were able to win. They were able to hold on to the Senate. And part of that is, and thank God Laura Trump is now controlling the RNC, while the fighting in the DNC and the Democratic Party is public, the fact is that the Republican Party, because of a small number of people who are envious of Donald Trump, effectively allowed, because of their dysfunction, because of just their refusal to admit that their policies also have failed this country, that Donald Trump, they would prefer to, burn the village down in order to save it. And that has cost us greatly. Those individuals are still around. And remember, this is a ground game. The Democrats have lost any kind of interest in persuading people. That's why they don't care about the convention. It's why they haven't cared about having a president who is actually able to engage in presidenting. They know that he can't. It's never been about that. It's been about controlling elections, controlling media, which they have, and making sure that no matter what happens, and now you see it in public. They're going to try to get Joe Biden out a side door. It's about manipulation. It's not really about persuading people or even earning votes. But now this is why they had to try to put Trump in jail, which was supposed to happen 2 days ago. And of course, he will prevail in his appeals, et cetera. But Trump can only do so much, right? We know the narrative. We know he can deliver.
Let me take a break because it's a good point. There's a whole section in this Atlantic magazine interview with the two campaign managers, La Civita and Susie Wiles, about early balloting, which is very interesting, and national message. So let's just take a little message here, a little bit of break. Joe Concha, Fox News contributor, Tammy Bruce, Fox News contributor, whose alarm clocks worked here this Saturday. So we're so pleased to have her back on. That was a joke, Tammy. Anyway, I'm Kudlow. We'll be right back.
Larry Kudlow. From Wall Street to the White House, this is the Larry Kudlow Show.
We're talking to Joe Concha and Tammy Bruce, both Fox News contributors. Pleasure to have them on. I want to go to those points that Tammy raised at the end, just before the break. Joe, I'm going to give you a whack at it. If you read this Atlantic magazine, whatever it's called, Atlantic Monthly, I usually don't read it, but I read it because of the two Trump campaign managers. They spend a lot of time talking, the campaign managers for Mr. Trump, talking about early balloting and harvesting, and exactly the points that Tammy referred. They know it broke down in 22. They know it broke down in 20. It wasn't so much of a big deal in 2016. It's a post-COVID thing. But they are spending tons of money with thousands of people, lawyers and volunteers, working on that early balloting and harvesting. So I think that's crucial. And the other second point, I'll just toss this in and you react to it, both of you. In 2022, the Republicans did not have a national message. I mean, you heard a lot of talk about inflation. Yes. Okay. But I'm particularly thinking about the abortion issue. They were tripping over their own shoelaces constantly over the abortion issue. And they didn't make enough. This time they will have a splendid national message, Mr. Trump's campaign platform, and they're going to have an all-out effort to have Republicans deal with the early balloting and the harvesting, which is going to be inevitable. So I would put those 2 points on the board, Joe. What's your reaction?
Well, 2022, I think Republicans were excellent about telling you what the problems were. But, you know, it's like my 10-year-old, somehow, she's only in fourth grade. She's learning algebra already. So I learned this little equation again. A plus B equals C if C plus B equals A, right? I think it's the associative property. And that's what Republicans are missing. They were missing the B part, right? They were saying, okay, inflation's horrible and gas prices are too high. We need to be more energy independent and crime's way out of control and the border's way out of control and illegal immigration and all that. So they told us what the problem was, but they didn't fill in the next part of the equation, which is what are you going to do about it, right? What's your solutions? Like you have to have forward-thinking message, and particularly on abortion, you're exactly right about that. You would hear from Lindsey Graham, for example, who would say that, yeah, we should probably have a federal ban on abortions, which is the last thing that you should be saying after the Supreme Court ruled the way they did, that the states should decide. Then you have DeSantis down in Florida with the 6-week ban, and you have everybody's all over the map. You're exactly right. Trump has been very precise on this. He's basically looking at the polls and saying, all right, nobody likes second or third term abortions, right? And that's after 15 weeks. So he's saying 15 weeks, just like in France, for example, that seems to be somewhere where we could find some compromise. And as you could diffuse that issue by just sticking with everybody with one message on that and then painting Democrats as the extremists who say, but they support abortions in the third term. Do you support that, Mr. or Mrs. Voter? So, yeah. You have to have a positive message. Optimism wins in elections. Shining city on the hill with Reagan. 1,000 points of light with George H.W. Bush. Hope and change with Barack Obama, and obviously Make America Great Again with Donald Trump. Joe Biden's message to this point is that guy's a convicted felon. He's bad. Vote for me because I'm not quitting. That's not going to resonate, and that's why Donald Trump, if the election were held today, would be your 47th president.
I just got a couple minutes, but Tammy, vice presidential picks, you got a lot of talented people here. Trump said on the radio yesterday probably would make the announcement Monday or Tuesday. It looks like the finalists are Burgum, Vance, and Rubio, although there could be others. What are you thinking about that, Tammy Bruce?
Well, I learned a long time ago not to second guess President Trump.
Mm-hmm.
He's learned a great deal himself over this period of time. I'm sure a lot of shocking revelations for him about what Washington's about. So he needs somebody who understands, like he does, what Washington's about. And if they have to learn in the process, are capable of doing so and have a spine. There are very few people who do. We found out with Mike Pence, I suppose perfectly fine, but not a person who changed the dynamic, who was a partner with President Trump in getting things done. And also we learned after the president's first term that a betrayal seems to be in the DNA of some of these people. And that is just disgusting. Right. So he needs somebody who he knows he can trust.
So who's
Usually
that person?
It is your family.
Who's that person?
I think President Trump is the only one who really can make that judgment. I have always felt, and some people get mad at me, that bringing DeSantis on would be key.
Ain't going to happen.
Resonated with a lot. I know it's not.
Joe Concha, 10 seconds. Give me a pick.
Marco Rubio.
Yeah.
Don't worry about him having to move out of Florida. That's an easy fix. Rubio gets the nod.
I got a country house in Connecticut with a perfectly good set of rooms for Marco if he needs it. Joe Concha, thank you. Tammy Bruce, thank you.
At Baker's Pharmacy, care is what's most convenient for you. Care is being here when you need us. We're open evenings and weekends. Care is helping you save more. Most insurance plans and discount cards are accepted at your local Baker's Pharmacy. Care is saving you time by managing your prescriptions online. You can request refills, check order status, and more. Care is convenience that works for everyone. Baker's, a world of care is in store. Services and availability vary by location. Age and other restrictions may apply. For coverage, consult your health insurance company. Visit the pharmacy or our site for details.